I used to think calm children were just born that way. The quiet ones in restaurants, patient at the grocery checkout, able to sit drawing for an entire afternoon without anyone needing to redirect them. I genuinely believed those children had some inborn quality my own busy household couldn't manufacture. I spent years quietly envying the parents who seemed to have found something I'd missed. Then I started researching Japanese childhood development and found a single word that rearranged everything I thought I understood about raising a focused child. The word is Yutori. It doesn't translate cleanly into English. The closest we get is something like spaciousness, a deliberate margin of unhurried time built into a child's day. Not time as a reward for finishing homework, not scheduled free time on a family calendar, just room. Empty, unplanned, unbothered room to breathe. And this deliberate emptiness may be one of the most powerful developmental gifts a parent can offer. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what Yutori means, where it comes from, and why developmental researchers have linked it to stronger executive function, deeper focus, and lower childhood anxiety. You'll also have one small change you can try tonight, a single protected window that asks nothing of your child except that you stop filling it. Let me give you the context first, because Yutori has a specific history that makes it more credible than a passing parenting trend. In the early 1980s, Japan began noticing something troubling in its schools. Children were burning out. The education system was celebrated for its rigor, entrance exams beginning in elementary school, cram schools running until 9 at night, weekends absorbed into supplementary lessons. Test scores were among the highest in the world. But childhood was disappearing under the weight of the schedule. A significant education reform arrived in 2002, officially called Yutori kyōiku, loosely translated as education with breathing room. The government reduced curriculum content by roughly 30%. Saturdays became school-free. Teachers were asked to slow down, to let concepts settle, to build unstructured time into the school day itself. The goal wasn't to lower standards. It was to lower the pressure quietly compressing children's inner lives. The results were complicated, and I want to be honest about that. Test scores dipped in the short term. Critics called it a failure. Japan partially reversed the policy by 2011. But when I went through the research, something stood out. The children who grew up in Yutori classrooms during that decade showed measurable differences in emotional regulation, not in their test scores, in their ability to manage themselves. A 2015 study comparing Japanese and American 8-year-olds found that Japanese children scored significantly higher on tasks measuring inhibitory control, the ability to pause an impulse, wait, and choose a deliberate response. Researchers connected this not primarily to genetics or parenting discipline, but to the rhythm of the school day. Specifically, the spaces between activities. What's most surprising about that finding isn't the result, it's the mechanism. The children weren't being taught to be patient. The margin itself was doing the teaching. Think about what happens in a child's brain when nothing is scheduled. No screen waiting, no lesson beginning, no organized game starting. For the first few minutes, most children feel something adults recognize immediately, a low hum of restlessness. That feeling is the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center, essentially warming up. When we always fill that space before the warm-up can complete, we interrupt the brain's own calibration process. Over months and years of consistent interruption, the capacity for self-regulation simply doesn't develop the way it would if the space had been protected. Researchers at Harvard's Center on the Developing Child have written extensively about the neural pathways that form through what they call serve and return, the responsive back and forth between child and environment that builds connection and skill. But there's a quieter complement to that. What happens when there's no serve at all? When the environment simply waits. The brain, left to its own rhythm, begins to self-organize. Attention consolidates, mood settles. The nervous system, freed from the constant demand to react, learns what it actually feels like to be still. This is Yutori at the level of neuroscience. In practice, Japanese families who live by this philosophy, and many do so instinctively, without calling it anything, build what I think of as pockets of nothing into the daily rhythm. 3 specific pockets appear again and again in accounts from Tokyo parents and educators. The first is the walk home from school. In Japan, children as young as 6 often walk to and from school alone or in small peer groups, a practice supported by the culture's deep investment in neighborhood safety and collective care for children. That walk, typically 15 to 20 minutes, is unstructured by design. No podcast, no waiting parent asking about the school day, no immediate homework prompt, just the walk. Researchers who have studied this pattern note that children with this unaccompanied return time show measurably lower cortisol levels by evening compared to children who are driven home directly into an adult-managed transition. The second pocket draws on another Japanese concept. Ma is the meaningful pause between things, the silence between notes that gives music its shape. In a parenting context, it means the deliberate gap before a new demand arrives. Before homework begins, before dinner is served, before a new activity starts, a quiet pause is held. 5 minutes of nothing. The child might draw, stare out a window, or just lie on the floor. One preschool educator in Tokyo described this practice in a way I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She said, "We wait for the child's breath to slow before we ask anything of them." Here's the part that cuts against every standard productivity instinct. Doing less consistently and without apology produces more capacity in the long run, not more output this week. More depth of focus 6 months from now, more emotional resilience next year. The child who has 20 genuinely unstructured minutes every day builds, over time, a relationship with their own mind that a perpetually scheduled child doesn't get the opportunity to build. The third pocket is what I'd call the after-dinner drift. In many Japanese households, there's a stretch after the evening meal, before bath, before bed, where nothing is organized. Children move through the space freely, at their own pace, without adult agenda directing them. This isn't free time entered on a schedule. It's the natural end of the day's structure, allowed to exhale on its own terms. I want to say something plainly because I think it matters. Yutori is not passive parenting. It's not neglect dressed up in philosophy. It requires something genuinely harder than filling the day with enrichment. It requires the parent to resist the impulse to fill the space. That resistance runs against almost every instinct in a modern, engaged household. We fill because we care. We schedule because we want to give our children every possible advantage. The radical act of Yutori is trusting that the empty space is itself the advantage. Here's a question worth sitting with. When was the last time your child had 20 minutes with genuinely nothing asked of them? No screen, no lesson, no social obligation, and you didn't feel a pull to offer something. What that pull reveals isn't a flaw in you. It's a mismatch between what we've been taught to value and what the developing brain actually needs. The science here isn't marginal. A 2019 study from the University of Colorado tracked children aged 5 to 7 over 2 years, measuring the balance of structured and unstructured time in their daily lives. Children with more unstructured time showed significantly stronger performance on executive function tasks, particularly planning ahead and managing their own attention, compared to children whose days were largely organized by adults. They weren't smarter. They were more self-directed, and self-direction is a capacity that can be grown, but only when given space to grow. So here's the single habit I want to leave you with, and it's small enough to begin tonight. Protect one window of 20 minutes. After school, after dinner, before bath, whenever the rhythm of your day allows. Make it genuinely empty. No default screen. No hovering question about how the day went. If your child says they're bored, you can say simply, "I know, see what comes next," and then wait. The first few days may feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is exactly the calibration happening, in your child and quietly in you as well. You're not doing nothing. You're doing something that 1,000 years of Japanese child-rearing and a growing body of developmental science agree on. You're giving your child's mind the room to find itself. Yutori isn't a method. It's a posture. It says, "I trust the pause. If this landed for you, share it with one parent who might need the reminder. And if you want more research-backed parenting, I'll see you next time."